Roguelike games continue to dominate the indie scene, but standing out in such a crowded genre isn't easy. Lost Castle 2 returns with the goal of improving everything that made the original game so enjoyable while introducing new mechanics, bigger challenges, and even more replayability. The first Lost Castle gained a loyal fan base thanks to its fast combat, randomized progression, and addictive co-op gameplay. The sequel builds on that foundation, promising a larger adventure with more weapons, enemies, and ways to customize your playstyle. But does it do enough to justify the sequel? So in today's review on RazorFrame, we're taking a closer look at Lost Castle 2 to see whether it's worth jumping into. Story like most roguelikes, Lost Castle 2 doesn't place a huge emphasis on storytelling. Instead, the narrative serves as a reason to enter dangerous castles filled with monsters, powerful bosses, and valuable loot. The world expands on the original game's setting with new regions, enemies, and mysterious locations to discover, but the real focus remains on gameplay rather than long story sequences. Players looking for a deep narrative may find the story fairly limited, but for this type of game, it does its job well. Gameplay. The core gameplay revolves around fast-paced action, dungeon exploration, and roguelike progression. Every run begins with basic equipment, but as players defeat enemies and collect loot, they gradually become stronger through new weapons, abilities, and upgrades. Death is part of the experience, but each run helps unlock permanent improvements that make future attempts more rewarding. The controls feel smooth and responsive, making combat satisfying whether you're fighting small groups of enemies or challenging bosses. One of the game's biggest strengths is the huge variety of weapons. Swords, bows, staffs, heavy weapons, and magical equipment all encourage different playstyles, making every run feel slightly different. Combat and boss fights combat is where Lost Castle 2 truly shines. Enemies attack aggressively, forcing players to constantly dodge, position carefully, and use their abilities effectively. Boss battles are especially enjoyable because each one introduces different attack patterns that require observation instead of simple button mashing. Learning enemy behavior becomes part of the progression, and finally defeating a difficult boss feels genuinely rewarding. The combat system strikes a nice balance between accessibility and challenge. Co-op and replayability. One of the biggest highlights of Lost Castle 2 is its multiplayer. Playing with friends adds another layer of strategy and makes runs feel much more chaotic and entertaining. Working together to survive difficult encounters, share loot, and defeat bosses creates some of the game's best moments. Even for solo players, the random generation of levels, equipment, and upgrades gives the game excellent replay value. No two runs ever feel exactly the same. Visually, Lost Castle 2 builds upon the colorful, cartoon-inspired style of the original. Character animations are smooth, enemy designs are creative, and environments offer plenty of variety. The visual clarity also helps during intense combat, making it easier to read enemy attacks even when the screen becomes crowded. Sound and atmosphere. The soundtrack fits the fantasy adventure perfectly. Exploration themes remain light and adventurous, while boss battles feature more energetic music that increases the tension. Combined with satisfying combat sound effects, the audio helps every encounter feel impactful. Pros and cons. Pros, fast and satisfying combat, huge weapon variety, excellent replay value, fun solo and co-op gameplay, challenging boss fights. Cons, story takes a back seat. Some runs depend heavily on random loot repetition may appear after many hours. Difficulty spikes can be unforgiving. Final verdict, Lost Castle 2 successfully improves on the original by expanding its combat, progression, and replayability without losing the addictive gameplay loop that made the first game popular. Whether you're playing alone or with friends, the constant stream of new weapons, upgrades, and randomized encounters keeps every run exciting. If you're a fan of roguelikes, dungeon crawlers, or co-op action games, Lost Castle 2 is definitely worth checking out. And for more game reviews and new releases, keep following RazorFrame.